Because when Israel does attack Iran, they will screw up, and they will cause vast numbers, millions of people to die in the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia from their actions as a side effect, as a known side effect. They are aware that they this can happen with the type of weapons that they're anticipating using.
Nuclear weapons?
No, because they're going to use bunker buster bombs against some nuclear sites, and our data suggests that they vaporize some really nasty stuff like plutonium that settles over in a huge cloud and wafts around the Earth, causing death and destruction for maybe 5 years.
Boy, that's ugly.
Yeah, and it'll get so bad, the data suggests that the U.S. will be drawn into it, and we could interpret the data in one way, or we could, it's an interpretation issue. You look at the linguistics and you say, well, it could be this or it could be that. And one extreme way of looking at it would be that the rest of the world comes and tells the United States, you deal with Israel or we will.
Uh-huh. So, and your linguistics is saying exactly, the best of your knowledge, plutonium?
No, it doesn't say that, but but it's something so deadly that's the first thing that jumps into my mind.
But you don't have anything up
I don't
yet.
have that word, no. But what I do have is archetypical words that would include the very kinds of damage that one would associate from plutonium poisoning, such as small particles, millions of small particles, death by bleeding through your anus, death by bleeding through your ears, death by rupture in the blood in the head, lots of diseased blood, dead blood, all of this kind of stuff. And one of the things plutonium does is kills your blood.
Yeah, boy.
And we're talking millions, maybe tens of millions. So much so that any potential ally or friend that the Israeli nation may have ever had is destroyed. That relationship is destroyed by the action of the Zionists in the attack on Iran.
How about gold? Somebody wants to know, an email here from Mark wants to know about the prices on gold, silver, and oil, the big three.
Prices, gold could easily go 6,000, but it's going to be kind of moot. I suspect that silver will do triple digits in dollars, but that really is an indication of how far the dollar falls, not how valuable silver becomes. Oil will become very dear and may get on the order for dollars, on the order of $300 or $400 a barrel.
Simply because the dollar will get its butt
Correct.
Right?
But in euros, it might be still, 60 or 80 euros for a barrel, but it takes so many of our dollars to buy the euros that we end up with that situation. But gold and silver are very curious because there's going to be a springback effect. Once the currency starts dying, you're going to see a panic rush into the precious metals that will stagger people. I mean, they'll just be floored by how rapidly and how fast it scales up in all currencies, but especially in the dollar. So I like surprises. I want a universe to surprise me. At the moment, people are saying $6,000 an ounce, and I have nothing to refute that. But I think it may go much higher simply because the dollar will be worth much less.
Yeah. Do you have? I lost my question. It just lost into the atmosphere. It just disintegrated right before the...
Well, no, I don't have that question.
You don't have that? Come on, what kind of guy are you, man?
Yeah, I can't forecast 2 seconds into the future, yeah.
You don't have that question. Okay, here's an email. I'll just, failing my brain, I'll just go to an email. Here's Val in Pennsylvania. How will debt be impacted by hyperinflation? How will debt?
Say you had a mortgage. The mortgage was a fixed item amount of $100,000, and the dollar collapses, and you had something that was of value, say a peach tree fully loaded, and all of a sudden a peach tree became worth $50,000 in U.S. You could sell your peach tree and pay off half your mortgage with a peach tree. Thus, the dollars that you have as a debtor will be cheaper for you if you can obtain them to pay off your fixed debt. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So that's the old idea that we hear a lot the last couple of months. Well, the United States is raping the dollar because then they'll be able to pay off their debts with cheaper dollars.
Correct, but it's going to get to the point where no one will accept it. Our language actually goes to and we've had this term since 2002 or 2003, showing up as rejected by all. So it may mean that in order for us to buy something, we literally have to trade coal for Canadian dollars or something and use those. Unless
we think that couldn't happen, we have experts on this show who have told us, Andrew Goss being one as well, that this early Arab oil embargo that we all experienced, those of us who are old enough, and the gas lines and all that, was totally about one thing, and that was gold and the dollar and oil, and they didn't want that stinking dollar anymore.
Right, and Nixon had severed the link for foreigners to gold,
Right.
And now we're going to sever the link to confidence between us and the dollar, and at that point it goes bluey, and who wants the thing?
Bluey, yeah. So what about the Internet? Now, there are people that says, well, this thing could just blow up, but I would say, just not linguistics aside, just kind of guys talking here, Clif, I mean, to smash the Internet, there wouldn't be any commerce. It would be a disaster.
Correct, but it shouldn't occur that way. Our linguistics and the nature of the Internet itself suggests that to a certain extent it's self-healing. As you know, the Internet is not an organization. It's merely a rather loose collection of servers placed around with some organizing structure.
Right.
So as companies go out of business, their servers will come up cheap, and people like myself who might have a few dollars would go and say, I only buy used equipment for my little server garden, and so I might go buy their servers, and therefore I would put the server back on the Internet. Only it would be for my purpose. So the nature of the net will change, but it does seem resilient enough, and it was designed that way, actually, to withstand nuclear attacks on this country. And we don't have any for sure language that the Internet per se goes away, but the commercial aspect of it is going to be greatly impacted over the next year, again, with the issues with the dollar. People, won't be buying, and then they're going to have a difficult time doing so because of the transactions and the constant changing of dollars. People won't be able to post prices, for instance, because the dollar will lose so much value between morning and night that you'll have to adjust every day.
Well, I think we're seeing it already, that if it were not for contributions, and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
We wouldn't really we wouldn't be able to get up the pony going because we're not selling a lot of stuff.
Same.
And we have good products,
Yeah.
Same with you, huh?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Everybody is hurting everywhere, and it's one of our strategies at this point to try and basically, I'm in a situation where if money were eliminated in the sense of the dollar does crash. I grow a lot of my own food. I can produce my own electricity, and so I'm relatively hardened that way. So one of my goals was to get as much information out there as possible in kind of a weird sort of a radical linguistics test or experiment, because I want to see if it's possible for us to change the future here. Because our linguistics really suggest that it's going to get nasty for the United States, that war is going to come, we're going to lose these wars, we're going to stretch our military very thin. We haven't really won any wars since probably the Spanish-American War, when we actually took territory in the form of Philippines. So it's going to be a very nasty situation for the populace, and I'm wondering if we could get enough awareness out there. Could we reach an emotional threshold that would cause it not to happen, and everybody would then turn around and say, boy, we were worried about nothing. Or they might even say, boy, that was a good warning and we came that close, I don't know if the future is mutable, and I sure hope it is.
I think, just for what it's worth, I think it is. I think enough people just turn it around. It just turns around.
Well, there's the issue,
I don't know.
I've been doing the math, okay?
Right.
And the math shows that I love math. Math is good stuff. So I'm looking at 6.5.
So you're talking about like the 100th monkey to really in a geek term, right?
Very, very, very much to that. So what I'm doing is saying, okay, at this point we have 6.5 billion people on the planet. How many people would have to be aware to cause the nature of humanity to change such that we eliminated war and got rid of the powers that be, etc., without any kind of blood or violence? Because that is in our future unless we do something different.
I agree, yes.
Okay, so I'm thinking that at a bare minimum we need to have 60 million aware individuals, that's 1% of the global population, be active. If we had 60 million be active, they could convert another 60 million, and then we've got 120 million. And the thing is that at some threshold between 2 and 3% of the populace, all of a sudden you start gathering 10% of the populace, then 20, and then it just scales very rapidly. So, for instance, in the beginning of the American Revolution,
I heard that it's a very small number, wasn't it?
It was 2%. Once Washington and these people knew that they had 2% of the populace, they knew they had a successful revolution, whether or not the war was won. Does that make sense?
Say that again?
They could have lost the war, but still had a successful revolution because England would have been forced by the fact that the populace was against them to not react that way anymore.
Very interesting.
So I'm hoping that those same kind of numbers would apply globally. And really, 60 million is not that much. Over how many millions have watched The Secret and some of these other more revealing YouTube things?
Sure. What about for the United States alone? What kind of number do you think it would take to really flip it around where maybe we'd get rid of the Federal Reserve and just print the money ourselves?
Well, I think
kind
that's actually the data suggests that's going to happen if all of us did nothing. That it's already baked in the cake, so to speak, because of the actions of the Federal Reserve.
Do you really think that? I think that'd be so cool.
So do I. I'm looking forward to it. It won't occur until, we won't be 100% sure on this until after November 2nd of next year, 2010, because we've got to go through this dollar death. But once the dollar dies, bear in mind the Federal Reserve has only one product, and that is to sell us dollars and take debt in return and interest. Mm-hmm. Once the dollar is no longer a product, we have no need for these people.
Yeah, you just get away. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Okay, here's an email from, from Sue. Don't know where she is. When will we begin to use gold and silver rather than the dollar?
I don't know that we will. Not going to the Safeway store and, paying for things with silver. The way it happened in Argentina is probably a fairly good model.